Thank you again to Ambassador McCain and her team for making her available to us. Again, apologies that she was not able to join us in person. But hopefully you all enjoyed that conversation. It was interesting for me to sort of hear her talk a little bit about particularly the fundraising piece that's going to be key as she comes in at WFP. It's been so important, of course, for them with David Beasley in charge. So it's going to be interesting to see sort of how she applies that philosophy, particularly pertaining to donors in the Middle East when she's coming in, and of course we'll be continuing to engage with her. I'd now like to welcome to the stage my colleague Catherine Cheney for our next conversation.
Thank you so much, Teresa, and thanks for a great conversation with Ambassador McCain. I'm really looking forward to this next session. Thank you so much. We're going to have one of our panelists joining us here in person in Austin, Texas. For those of you joining us on live stream, we'll also have a panelist joining us from Nairobi, Kenya, virtually. So hopefully everything's set up there. But I want to go ahead and welcome Jehiel Oliver to the stage. Many of you know Jehiel. Let's give Jehiel a round of applause. Many of you may know Jehiel. I know some of you are partners with Jehiel. And he is the CEO and founder of Hello Tractor, which you're going to hear a little bit more about. Jehiel, you can go ahead and take a seat if you'd like. I'm going to make sure we have Jemimah Wanjiku from DigiCow with us. She might be behind me. Oh, we're having some trouble connecting. So we're going to start the conversation here in person with Jehiel, and hope that Jemimah will be with us shortly. I'm just going to keep an eye on the screen here. So what we're going to be talking about today, you heard Ambassador McCain mention just now the role of science and technology, and a big part of that is ag tech, which is a very crowded space. There's a lot happening in ag tech. A lot of that is being discussed here at South by Southwest. In fact, Jehiel was on a session Friday speaking about that. Some of you might have caught him at a conversation yesterday speaking about that. So we're going to talk about Hello Tractor, and then I will introduce Jemimah if and when she can connect. And actually part of why I'm so excited to have Jemimah if she can join is that Hello Tractor and DigiCow have worked together in some interesting ways, so hopefully we'll get into that. But as you all know, and why we're having this conversation, agricultural technologies, and that's everything from mobile apps to remote sensing to automation, really has a lot of great potential to improve productivity and yield, but a lot of those benefits are being seen in high-income markets. And today we're going to narrow in on the opportunity in low-income markets. Who's seizing that opportunity? Hello Tractor is certainly a pioneer at the forefront, but also what challenges are you running into? What more is needed? What can people in this room do to advance this space? So I want to go ahead and start by asking you, Jehiel. We met, in fact, the last time we saw each other in person.
Long time ago.
It was 2016 at Devex World, our conference that happens in Washington, D.C. And at that time, you were talking about Nigeria, which is where Hello Tractor initially launched. It's since expanded quite a bit, which you can speak to. But you were talking about how in Nigeria, the agricultural landscape is dominated by smallholder farmers, and that's a case in a lot of these countries we're focused on, and that the vast majority of these farms are hiring off farm labor that is expensive and highly inefficient. And that is where Hello Tractor comes in. So for those who are less familiar, can you tell us more about what is Hello Tractor and what's the problem you were setting out to solve?
Sure, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here, everybody. So I started the business 8 years ago to solve just the problem that you articulated. Farmers across the emerging markets are largely responsible for the food that we eat, globally. And these farmers plant late and undercultivate because of labor constraints. And typically, when labor is unavailable, markets mobilize around things like mechanization. But across Africa, this is one of the least mechanized agricultural markets globally. And we thought technology could play a role in getting equipment out to these growers so they can produce more efficiently. About approximately 50% of the yield gap that African farmers face is because they don't have access to mechanization. And so what we did was we launched first a technology platform for farm equipment owners to remotely monitor and manage their equipment, become comfortable sending their equipment to far off places, sometimes on the other side of Nigeria, and be able to see exactly what that equipment does through GPS monitoring and the related apps that we built on top of that. And then a marketplace where when they do send their equipment out, they can service a month's worth of farmers to justify the spend of traveling to a far off place. And that demand is well organized so that you can deliver the services efficiently. That's the underlying kind of thesis to Hello Tractor. And it's been an evolution. It's been a lot of trial and error, as you alluded to. But that's been our journey.
Tell me more about that, because we were catching up a little bit before this session, and as I mentioned, haven't seen you since 2016, but you're now coming up on your 10-year anniversary almost as a social enterprise. You were founded about almost 10 years ago?
2014.
We're getting close to that. Next year will be 10 years.
Yeah, 2014.
So it's had its ups and downs,
Yep.
as is the case with any startup.
Yep.
So talk us through that. What have been some of the ups and downs, and how have you kind of persevered through that and stayed true to your mission, really?
Yeah, so the mission was always to put more cash in smallholder farmers' pockets. I addressed this problem from a finance perspective. That's my background. And the global poor overwhelmingly earn their income on the farm, and they need mechanization. And so that was always a very consistent goal, was to get them the mechanization so they can earn more money. But we started with selling our own tractor that was tech-enabled. And it was a crappy idea. It was something that we pulled off the shelves of research. We worked closely with the CG centers, Cornell University, UC Davis, to introduce these low horsepower two-wheel tractors. They're very common in wet paddy rice production systems, specifically like Bangladesh. You used to see them in all over India. The market's kind of matured, China as well. So we thought we could bring that technology to Africa. It wasn't a good fit. It took us a while to figure that out because we weren't listening to our customer. And so 3 years in, we decided to pivot away from that and be tech only, because that's what our customers asked us for. When we pivoted to that, and that was 3 difficult years. That was a lot of, I seeded the company with my own savings, so that was a lot of heartache and a lot of arguments with my wife. But eventually we did listen to the customer. And when we gave the customer what they asked us for, we ended up very successful with this new product. And we got 50% in our first year. We got 50% of all tractors in Nigeria were on our platform. And they were paying us for a SaaS product, which is unheard of. If anybody who follows tech in Africa, African customers do not pay for software products. And 50% of our customers, or 50% of the tractor market, was on our platform paying us, voting with their dollars on this product. So that was a huge win, but it took us 3 years to figure that out.
I have to ask a follow-up. You mentioned how there was a time, we have Jemimah with us. Hi, Jemimah, can you hear me? Good to see you.
Hey, Jemimah.
Yes, I can. Hi. Yeah, hi. I can assure you we have better connectivity in Nairobi. I'm looking a bit blurred, but I can hear you just fine.
You can hear us. Okay, great. We can hear you too. I don't know if you were able to
Okay.
catch what Jehiel was saying, but next year will mark 10 years since the founding of Hello Tractor. And we were hearing about some of those ups and downs and learnings along the way. And one of the things Jehiel was just talking about that I was about to follow up on is listening to your customer, and that's so key to what you have to do to succeed as a business in this space, in this increasingly crowded space. I mean, there is a lot of work happening in ag tech. But actually, Jemimah, this is a perfect opportunity to bring you in. I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about DigiCow. And given that this is such a crowded space, what was the void that you and your co-founder saw in starting DigiCow? Speaking of customers' needs, what did your customers need that no one was meeting that need?
Okay. Thanks so much. DigiCow was born out of passion, and all the 3 co-founders are dairy farmers. And we came together because of our personal problems, really. And we were running farms away from where we work from. And every other weekend, when you go to the farm, you're trying to collect data on what has happened over the week. Unfortunately, there was no data. And this is where we realized a void. Also, one of our co-founders is an extension person who was working with the government. And she gave us a lot of insight on how to incorporate the farmer and how to incorporate the dairy cow. We came in to address milk production in Kenya. Cows were doing badly before DigiCow. They were producing less than 10 liters against a potential of 30 liters. And this is attributed to the lack of verified information and also lack of data that a farmer can use to make at their farm. So all these we came together, and we began a mobile app, which is DigiCow, to enable farmers, one, digitize their records, access verified information, which is very customized even into local languages, and also access experts. Because in Kenya, we have very few extension people. One extension person serves over 3,000 farmers, which is actually very hard for anyone to achieve. And so we brought in this technology to complement what the government can offer. That's where DigiCow was born from. Yeah.
Jemimah, can I ask you a follow-up question to that?
Yeah, sure.
Speaking of your mission, because I was asking Jehiel, how do you stay true to your mission with all the ups and downs? I know that part of your mission has to do with youth in agriculture, and that you see youth in ag as a very important part of the way forward when it comes to addressing poverty, addressing hunger. Can you speak a little bit more about that? How does DigiCow tackle this issue of making sure that agriculture is an appealing sector for youth to work in?
Yeah, sure, I can. One, by the virtue of fact that I am a youth myself, and when they see that a young person, yeah, that a young person is involved in agri-tech, they become very interested. But over and above that, we have a hybrid model where we incorporate not only the tech bit, but also a human touch. So through the DigiCow app, we're able to train farmers in group setups where we work with these youth, and this youth is paid on a weekly basis, a commission paid to their M-Pesa, which makes it very attractive for them to work with DigiCow. And over and above that, they get a platform where they keep learning. They can go back to DigiCow, learn as they educate the farmers, so which becomes a plus for them. And it is actually very cool when you're training farmers with a smartphone and a Bluetooth speaker. You're not like any other extension person. So that has really made the young people very interested. Another thing is that we've built a lot of trust with these young people. We listen to their feedback a lot, and we keep incorporating their feedback in our processes. And another thing is that we in-house we absorb them. We've so far permanently employed 3 who are working as field agents. So that gives them a lot of motivation to keep working with us. Yeah.
Thank you, Jemimah. Now, one thing I mentioned to Jehiel and Jemimah, and I know it's hard when we have in-person and virtual participation, though I'm grateful for the opportunity to bring Jemimah in virtually. I said, let's make sure this doesn't feel like 2 separate conversations. Let's come together around some things. And I am hearing some themes that are coming up in both of your responses about the work you're doing, including listening to your customers, the importance of not just the technology, but trust. So I know that's huge. And actually, the 2 of you were in a conversation the other day at South by Southwest in this same format, Jemimah joining virtually, and you were talking about this very big problem that Africa imports $35 billion of food annually. Can you talk about how ultimately your models are aiming to tackle that problem as well, and why ag tech is going to be an important part of feeding the continent, even ensuring that Africa can become an exporter of food, which I know you've talked about, Jehiel. So let's discuss that big problem, importing $35 billion annually, not sustainable. How do your models help to address that issue? And maybe we'll start with Jehiel.
Yeah, briefly. So we talked about the work we're doing in closing the yield gap. Big part of that is the lack of access to mechanization. And within that strategy is what we call our breadbasket strategy, which is bringing our engaged customers one activity to become highly engaged, 3+ activities. And that includes not just mechanization, but the right seeds, the appropriate fertilizers, both organic and inorganic, harvesting and post-harvest services, storage, and market linkages. And that's where organizations like DigiCow come in, where they're working very closely with dairy and the livestock value chain, and we have large numbers of growers doing things like rice cultivation. And at the end of the year, our rice farmers burn the hay, the straw in their fields, and rice straw is of low nutrient value. And so we just started a program where we're adding urea to fortify that rice straw, bale it using our tractors and mechanization, and then working with organizations like DigiCow to make sure that the farmers and pastoralists within their customer segment have the food for their cows during this time of drought. We're in the third straight year of drought. I think Ambassador McCain touched on that. In Kajiado alone, I think it's something like 500,000 farmers that are being pushed into poverty because of these droughts. And that's your savings account as a pastoralist. And so getting them fortified feed for those cows to get them through the season is mission critical. We can't do it by ourselves. We have to work with organizations like DigiCow. They have a proven track record in this area. They have relationships with the pastoralists. So it's a very, very nice synergistic kind of collaboration.
Thank you. And Jemimah, would love to hear from you as well. I would think
Yeah.
you might even comment on how it's not just DigiCow, but broadly youth coming up with ag tech solutions that will be critical to tackling this problem of feeding the continent and the planet.
Yeah. The beauty about tech is that we're able to integrate and we do not need to keep reinventing the wheel. So recently we had a survey done by 60 Decibel, which was an independent blight survey. And 75% of our farmers are actually using human labor. So we can, that's why we work with the likes of Hello Tractor to mechanize so that we make sure that farmers are able to get the best results with minimal labor. And as you may understand, most of the labor work in Africa is done by women. And we are very passionate about women. If we can relieve them of this labor, then they are able to look after their livestock in a better manner. They are able to look after their children in a better manner. And it becomes an all-round thing, not only the dairy farming. So we are very keen on impact. And with that tech, we are able to collect a lot of data that can even guide financiers to come on board, finance these farmers, drive mechanization, drive digitization, etc., so that we can have better results. Those are my comments.
Thanks, Jemimah. There's so much I want to get to, but we're running out of time, and I do want to bring in a perspective from the audience. I want to go to, I know we have someone here from Counterpart International, Ann Hudock from Counterpart International. Now, a lot of you may not necessarily associate Counterpart with agriculture, but increasingly I know you're working in this space. So I'd love to hear a perspective you have to offer or a question you might have. And one thing I'll just go ahead and throw out there while we get the mic to Ann is, one thing that hasn't come up yet is, you've partnered with each other, yes, but I know you have a lot of interesting partnerships in the mix that we haven't had a chance to get to, so maybe Ann can help us get there. But Ann, what's a perspective you have to share or a question for our panelists?
I really appreciate hearing from both of you, and the work you're doing is so critically important. And I think my question is actually around partnerships. I was thinking, you mentioned, Jehiel, that you're even collaborating, partnering with DigiCow, and that the scale of the challenges are so vast. How is it that you think about partnerships, and how do you see particularly unlikely partnerships?
Yeah.
Counterpart is founded by a priest and a movie star, and we're non-denominational, but so we really kind of have that baked into our DNA, the unlikely partnerships. And as I was listening to both of you talk, I was thinking, to solve these kinds of challenges, is that what we need more of? And how do you go about creating your own partnerships?
Maybe I'll answer first. Thank you, Ann. So partnerships obviously are really important to tackle these deeply entrenched problems, and these problems are much bigger than Hello Tractor, much bigger than DigiCow. They're doing great work, but these are just massive, massive problems. I'll give you an example of how we've used partnerships in very creative ways. About a little over a year ago, we started partnering with Heifer International, who's also in the room. Odessa, if you could raise your hand. I think she's here. Yeah, there he is. And we launched this, we designed this tractor finance product to get more liquidity into our markets. We had way more farmers than we had tractors to service them. And so we do about 1.7 million acres of services in our marketplace, 630,000 farmers. We got like 10x that in bookings. And farmers hate us because we can't service their fields. And so Odessa did a lot of research around what the farmers in the Heifer network needed, and tractors came up as the top thing. They capitalized that tractor finance product for us. They seeded it with philanthropic capital and a recoverable grant, basically a zero interest loan. We took that, deployed it, and the product was successful. John Deere came in with their commercial capital on top of that. And it's actually one of the few examples where philanthropy actually unlocked truly commercial, not John Deere Foundation, but truly commercial capital, and they have their own financial interests. But as they met their financial interests, we were able to meet the impact interests at scale, and they got $7 billion in cash on their balance sheet, and it's just itching for a place to go. And by partnering with Heifer and Heifer Farmers and the philanthropic arm to capitalize a high-risk product that was unproven, we were able to develop a track record and then put some truly commercial leverage on top of that. And if we continue to execute, the sky is the limit. And we might be able to solve the problem by bringing in philanthropy, large corporates who don't actively invest in African agriculture, and then all the partners that we have here today.
Thank you, Jehiel. I'm glad you brought up the John Deere example. I know John Deere is now your largest investor, but it took that catalytic move to help that happen. So thanks for sharing. Jemimah, I want to go to you. How do you look at partnership? Why is partnership so key to what you do? And maybe since we're nearing the end of our time here, what can people in this room do when it comes to partnership?
Okay. To us, partnership are the likes that assist us scale and also are very keen on impact. And never in our wildest dreams did we think that we would be training farmers on climate smart agriculture. We were very keen doing the dairy cow farming, but we've been working with partners like Mercycorp's AgriFin to enable farmers understand the need for climate smart agriculture and push the agenda for sustainable farming and also biogas installation. We also never thought we'd work with the likes of Hello Tractor. Ours was very focused on the farmer having the feeds, and then we take it up from there. But now we've seen that we cannot work alone. We must partner, and we must have the right partners on board. Those are that are very keen on impact and are very passionate about the smallholder farmers. What was your next question? What was your other question?
Just quickly, and I know one of your partners is the World Bank, for example. So I know that in the global development space, you're looking for and actively partnering with groups in this space. But just quickly, any thoughts for this room, people who are gathered here or joining virtually in terms of how they can support ag tech innovators like yourself?
Yeah, I'll mostly address the financials. They should have a little more faith in AgTech because I understand working in agriculture can be risky, but with AgTech, there's a possibility of collecting reliable data. And from this data, a lot of information can come and a lot of decisions can be made in knowing whom to invest in, when, and how. So have a little faith in us and come on board and invest.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you, Jemimah. Jemimah, Jehiel, thank you both so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Jemimah.
Thank you.